Welcome to you all. As I said, for those who weren't here a couple of minutes ago, Christoph is on his way. I will pick up and run the panel for the moment. We have one very special guest this evening, Councillor Keith House, who is the leader of Eastleigh Borough Council, and he is supporting us on this is module 4, is it, Harry? 4, sorry, it's on the screen. Module 4. Eastleigh has a fabulous story, and it gives a very different perspective around the provision of social and affordable housing. And so it'd be a great opportunity to hear a different answer than what we normally get. So Keith's got a couple of slides which will allow him to obviously go through, and then we've got some questions that we'll commence with. So brilliant, thank you. Do you want to go on to the next slide, Harry? So obviously receive apologies for any absence, and to note the attendance of any substitute members. I know that Tina Mackenzie-Boyle is unfortunately unable to attend. Christoph is on his way. Any other apologies, Harry?
That's covered.
Thank you very much. Next slide. So normal declarations of interest and party whip. Any member have a disclosable pecuniary interest or acting under the whip, let me know. Any member with an affected interest? No, brilliant. Right, let's keep moving. Okay, so we've already done 2 modules. Obviously, the first one was policy, and the various different policies we have at Bracknell Forest Council, including planning and the policies relating to the provision of social housing. Module 2, we had a developer in to discuss how they engage with registered providers and deliver social housing for us, and how they also contribute in other ways, in particular SIL money. So we are now starting to look at alternative ways of providing social and affordable housing, and we are still trying at this stage to get ABRI to attend one of our meetings as the most significant registered provider in our borough. I will share with you that we haven't successfully achieved that. We also asked Homes England to attend, but they politely declined our invitation. So we're very happy to have Keith come to talk to us tonight, actually, and give us that excellent different perspective. Next slide, Harry. Off we go. So Keith, would I be so bold to just ask if you could give a quick introduction to yourself and you're at the start of your fabulous story?
Okay. Do you want me to dive straight in as well after that, Michael?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, good. Right, slides down. I'll bring mine up in a second. That'll be great. So good. Pleased to see everyone here this evening from Bracknell Forest. And if you really have difficulty with ABRI, they're headquartered in my borough. I'm sure I can get them along to do something. I probably can't guarantee the same from Homes England now, although if you ask me a question pointedly as we go by, I might say why I think Homes England said no to you, but we'll come to that in a bit. So I'm going to share.
Really interesting.
I'm going to share my screen, and don't worry, this isn't going to be death by PowerPoint. I assure you, it's about 10 minutes quick overview of various stuff that we've done, things that we're interested in, and why that might be of interest to you. You may get shocked along the way, but that is my job, to provoke thought and discussion this evening. So that's what I'll be trying to do. So background very, very quickly. Who am I? I'm the leader of Eastleigh Borough Council. I have been since 1994. That is a very long time, I know. Eastleigh is a council of about 140,000 people. So it's a medium-sized district council, so we're not a lucky unitary like you, so we don't deliver adults and children's and highways and stuff like that, but we do deliver lots and lots of lovely houses. So the questions will start pretty soon, I suspect, but let's see where this goes if I keep on going. This is a background that you know. You all know we don't build enough homes. We've undersupplied housing in this country for over 40 years, probably closer to 50 now. The government says we should be building 300,000 a year. Not a cat in owl's chance that's going to happen over the next few years because the pipeline's not big enough, and that requires roughly doubling the delivery everywhere at all. So that's the backdrop. What can councils do? Well, lots actually. The first point is this is not just about delivering planning permissions. It's owning the problem, understanding what needs to happen to speed up development. First and foremost, I think that means being prepared to talk to people. Um, One of the key things I do as a council leader is I have very regular meetings with the major developers and landowners and agents in our borough because they typically are the biggest investors in our place. If I don't understand their business plan, how can they expect me to understand theirs, and vice versa? Really is important. And examining underused land, looking at issues where places have been slow to get going, all these things are really important. Can we just pause? I think there might be quite be some feedback floating around. I don't know where that is. Is that true? I wonder. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's gone now. Okay, that's good. So all these things can make a big difference to getting up housing supply. But the key thing is for councils to do stuff themselves. You don't have a housing revenue account, as I understand it. Well, we didn't in Eastleigh, and we didn't. We still haven't got a housing revenue account now. We were setting one up, but we've abandoned that now because we're about to be unitarised with some of our neighbours. So you can do this stuff without an HRA. Lots of councils have set up housing companies to do things. Well, we did that as well. It turned out we didn't really need to do it. We had all the powers we needed within our general fund to achieve delivery. We committed ourselves very early on that we wanted to make sure that infrastructure came first because that's usually something which is a block to development. Residents don't like infrastructure coming last. They want infrastructure at first. They want to be able to get there. They want to be able to cycle there. They want mature trees. They want sustainable urban drainage. They want schools and libraries and doctor's surgeries and all these kind of things. How can you make that happen? Well, you can. There's nothing to stop you buying land on the open market. I'll come on to that in a minute. There's nothing to stop you developing any land, and you can always talk to Homes England. I'm going to keep on saying talk to Homes England. I know that might be a bit provocative given your current state, but it will make a difference eventually. So that's where we're at with some of this stuff in the background. So a myth. You're short of money. Um, Actually, I don't believe that. There is money available. There is no shortage of money. It is a general myth. You have got borrowing powers first and foremost. You haven't got an HRA, so you can't use that route, but you can use the Public Works Loan Board, or you can even simply go to the market if you want to. You've got a power of general competence. You have access to money. The critical thing is that you need to have a business case for what you're doing. If you've got a business case for what you're doing, you can walk down the high street and find a bank if they're still open, and get them to lend you the money, or you can just go to government. Equally, if you're not that confident, and you won't be to start with, you can go and set up joint ventures with the private sector or do other kind of deals with the private sector. It's all possibly doable. What can you do? Loads and loads and loads. Here's just a few of the bullets of things that we've done in Eastleigh over the course of the last decade or so. The one I highlight up the top is creating new market rented stock. Why would you want to do that? Well, firstly, because there's an insatiable demand for market rented property, and it can actually help you cash flow some of the other stuff that you want to do. So why not get involved in that? Kind of things we've done with that are also giving new tenants in our market rented stock lifetime tenancies because we can. Why not? One of the things that young people in particular find a problem with the market rented sector is that they get on these horrible short tenancies that they get kicked out, so they can't establish careers, they can't establish families, yet they haven't got the funds themselves at this stage in their lives to buy. They want to aspire to that. Well, so we give them lifetime tenancies and the option to buy from us later if they want to. So all that kind of stuff. Of course, you want to build affordable homes of properly social rent, affordable rents, mixed tenure stuff with future home ownership. So staircasing that, all perfectly doable. You can do things with the private sector if you want to unblock sites. We had a site we'll come on to in a moment where several sites that we unblocked supply because it simply wasn't happening. We wanted to make sure the homes were built because if we didn't get the homes built, we wouldn't get the affordable housing that came with it. You can even lend money to developers if it turns out really helpful. So lots and lots and lots of things that you can do. Here's a quick scan through some of the completed projects that we've done in Eastleigh over the course of the last 10 years. You'll see there are a variety of sizes. I'm not going to go through them individually, from very small schemes to a bit larger. You'll see there's quite a mixture of terms of things there. First two we did were two on sites that we owned the land, but we didn't know what we were doing. We were new to this area of activity back 10 years ago. So we worked with one with Abri, one with Vivid, our RSLs working in the area to make sure we could deliver homes with mixed tenure. One scheme was a mixture of social rent and market rent. The other was a mixture of market rent, social rent, and homes for sale. That worked out incredibly well. Several sites where we involved in unblocking them because there were problems with them. One that's mentioned here with Taylor Wimpey, controversial site. We wanted to change the access arrangement from the site. We wanted a new country park. We didn't like the scheme they put forward. We didn't like the access they put forward. So we simply bought the land from the landowner and got Taylor Wimpey in to build them for us. We pre-purchased lots and lots of units from the developer, and as part of the deal, insisted they deliver at twice the normal speed. Because we were purchasing homes, they didn't have the absorption rate issue that stops a lot of developers getting on with stuff. Lots of others on that slide. I won't go into the details on them. I'm happy to answer any questions, but they show a variety of different things from urban to rural to suburban, from small to medium to large. So, what do these look like, some of these homes? Like that, roughly. Just like homes anywhere else. Mixture of flats and houses, even one or two bungalows. We try not to build bungalows because they're not very good land use, but one scheme required a couple of bungalows just because of the adjacent properties. But new homes built by Easter Council for the community. These are ones from those first couple of schemes. We typically build at higher densities now, but these were early things, as you can see, and they even have proper balconies, not these horrible Juliet balconies. One or two of them even have garages. Again, we try to avoid garages now for the same reason. They're not very good use of land. And everything you see on this screen is a mixture of market rent, market sale, and social and affordable rent. Current projects, again, a total mixture from small to large, from small sites that are just 2 or 3 units in town centres, on urban sites that are just difficult to get away and which volume builders are now not interested in, and typically housing associations aren't interested in either, through to bigger projects. One of 200 homes in my community in Hedge End, where we bought some land from the county council that they were sitting on not using properly. We're building a higher density scheme there over the course of the next few years, right the way through to our flagship scheme at 1 Horton Heath of nearly 3,000 homes. 3,000 homes, did you hear him say? Yes, you did hear him say. We bought the land from the market for 3,000 homes, greenfield site, because the market wasn't delivering. It was a local plan allocation, originally for a much smaller scheme. We bought up additional land alongside it, densified it, improved the quality of it, and we're now taking it forward. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment, because it shows you what you can do, not what you're capable of doing right now, but what Bracknell Forest could be doing in a few years' time if you're prepared to bite the bullet on this. And as we say, our continued objective here is to unblock stalled sites as well. Our job is to deliver new homes, not just planning permissions. So one example here of what a council might look like doing this kind of stuff. A mixture of market rent, market sale, and affordable. Market rent does improve the quality of the sector. You can be a good landlord in a way that sometimes rogue landlords out there aren't. You can improve the tenure diversity. There is an insatiable demand for this stuff, and this produces long-term income, which is a great benefit to you as a local authority. Market sale can also help in that regard too, just in terms of oiling the wheels, making sites viable, as part of making sure you've got a business case to deliver the affordable, which is probably what you want most of all. Put that lot together and you can deliver affordable homes alongside commercial properties that are for either rent or for sale. 1 Horton Heath, I talked about just a moment ago. Roughly everything you see within the red line is land that the council bought. You'll see there's a wiggly line. I don't know if my mouse will go down the wiggly line through the site. Distributor Road, 1.2 miles long. We said we would build, complete, and open that land before any homes were available to be occupied. That was part of our infrastructure first commitment, alongside putting in urban drainage features along the route. Lots of mature trees, over 650. Ground source heat pump boreholes, over 200, and in the first phase down here, because no gas on site, because this is a green environment, Green Council were committed to do things. And some years into the development, or the project, that's the first phase that's being built out right now. One corner of the site, the very first element of the very first phase, you can see a mixture of houses and apartments on the corner of the site, and in the bottom of the screen in the right hand corner, the road that we proudly opened as we committed to do before the first homes were for sale, 1.2 miles long. And you can even see the quality of the bridges that we built there, with high quality streetworks along the side, good quality cycleway that's off-road, all part of delivering infrastructure first, because that was important to our residents and to our community, and we think it matters. And remember, we as a local authority are not a highway authority. So doing this, as we'll be building the school in due course, not as an education authority, but just because we can as a borough council. We even launched our own housing brand as part of this, Eastbrook Homes. We did recognise that if we put up placards in the local estate agent saying buy your home from Eastleigh Borough Council, some people might think, oh, buy a home from a borough council. Probably don't want to do that. Eastbrook Homes is our brand, and we use that brand to cover our for sale, our market rent, and our affordable and social rented stock. So these things can be done. What's the missing ingredient? There is a magic ingredient, I'm afraid to say, and this is getting your political and managerial leadership totally on board with this stuff. If you can do that, you can make this stuff happen. Now, it requires long-term political and managerial commitment. I usually say that if you haven't got the cabinet plus the leader, plus the chief executive, plus the Section 151 officer on board, it ain't going to happen. Most of all own the problem. Two reports that looked at this issue in detail about 10 years ago now. One was by Michael Lyons for the Labour Party. One was by myself and Natalie Alfick for the coalition government at the time. All came to roughly the same conclusions. Councils can and should be intervening to get homes built, because we're not building enough homes, we're not building in the right places, we're not building them at the right quality, and we're certainly not getting the tenure mix correct to make things happen. I said this would be a quick tour through, a very quick tour through of some of the things you can and can't do. So at that point, I'll stop sharing, and we can have a discussion and come back to any of those points that people want to ask me questions on.
Brilliant.
Hopefully it's a good key to debate.
Harry, could you bring up the context slide? Just then I'll let Jodie's got a question, but let me bring up the context slide. So this is really useful. This is just a comparison.
Oh, good. Someone's done some work. Excellent.
Yeah, this is a comparison between Eastleigh and Bracknell Forest. An awful lot of similarity, as you can see. The one that's really interesting is the barriers to housing and services. Recognizing, so Bracknell Forest, by the way, is pink, Eastleigh is purple.
Okay.
The further to the right you are, the better.
Okay.
I show this to you just that it surprised me that barrier to housing and services, and I think that is primarily down to the approach that Eastleigh have taken.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, we're now responsible in one shape or form for about a third of all the building in our borough. The vast bulk of the rest is by volume builders, and only a small amount is private individuals and SMEs. The SMEs were basically pushed out of the housing development sector by the housing crash in 2008-9 and the financial crash at the time, and haven't come back again. So we are the missing bit of the jigsaw. If we go back 50, 60, 70 years, local authorities were responsible for about a third of the homes that were being built. Now, by accident, not design, we've ended up with doing exactly the same thing. About a third of everything being built at the moment, Eastleigh's got a hand in one shape or form. Going forward, that's going to inch up a bit, mainly because the private sector has stopped applying for planning approvals because of the financial position at the moment. So we'll actually probably be responsible for about half the homes being built, which is kind of worrying, because if we weren't in the market, we wouldn't be meeting housing need at all.
Brilliant. Jodie, you have a question. You there, Jodie? You're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Can we take the slide down, Harry, just so that we can all see Jodie? Brilliant. Oh, we can't see Jodie.
Hello.
Yes, we can.
Right, sorry, having this meeting on the fly while cooking dinner.
Good for you.
So it sounds like you're doing really well. I have a couple of questions about borrowing. So when you say we can borrow money, who would we be borrowing that from? And do you mean borrowing so that we can buy land, or so that we can build houses, or is it both?
Yeah, it's both. You can borrow from anyone you want to. I mean, you can borrow from Harry if you really want to, but he probably hasn't got the ability to lend it to you. Conventionally, you'd either go to the government, which is usually the cheapest route, the Public Works Loan Board, or you can literally borrow on the open market. You can issue, in theory, you can issue bonds if you really want to.
Wouldn't that add to our overall deficit, though, with that? add to our
Yes.
debt?
So it does. It doesn't affect your deficit because your deficit is a revenue budget issue. You hopefully haven't got a deficit. Debt, yes, it does, but it's exactly the same as a mortgage. Um,
Mm,
we borrow to invest in housing on the basis that if we can make a return over 50 years, so longer than you would do through a conventional DIY mortgage at home, then we consider that to be a sound business case. Usually the figures are
mm,
much better than that, but we're prepared to borrow for up to 50 years on the basis of long-term income. Now that income comes in three different chunks. A chunk of it comes through simply from selling new homes, if you're building some homes for sale. Another chunk comes through from market rented stock on a monthly basis, month in, month out, year in, year out. And the third
mm,
chunk comes classically from Homes England as housing grant to fund your affordable housing. Most schemes on most sites nowadays are not viable to deliver affordable housing themselves unless the land has been thrown in free by the landowner, which doesn't happen very often these days. So you
yeah, I
have to
doubt
get a
that.
grant from Homes England to do that. And
Mm,
Homes England and this is one of the myths and secrets in the housing sector. Homes England have got usually more money than they know what to do with. So they are
mm,
desperate to find councils and housing associations, and increasingly now at the moment, councils, because housing associations haven't got the capacity to build right now. They are desperate to get money out the door, so they will give grant to local authorities for house building. What you have to achieve with Homes England, though, it's a kind of classic catchy monkey thing, is you've got to achieve credibility with them by doing some stuff first, so that they know that if they give you money, you'll actually spend it and use it, because it causes them deep embarrassment with government if they give you money and then you don't use it. So it's a long-term process. In the meantime, you can do joint ventures with Persimmon or Taylor Wimpey or Barrett's or anyone else that you really don't like, to get some of this stuff going and out the door, or you can simply go to the government and borrow money for small projects to start you going. And yes, that creates long-term
okay.
borrowing, but it's financeable by the income you're getting. At the moment, it's the market rented stock that's generating the best return and is making a lot more
Oh,
projects viable.
thank you. And I mean, assuming that they were ever to sell, what is to stop us from buying up, say, Abbury stock with the land included and, redoing them? Is that
You could do. I
practical?
mean, we've taken the view, and yeah, I should have prefaced this whole thing by saying, don't copy us, learn from us, and do what's best for you, because what's best for you is going to be different from what was best for us. But yeah, there's nothing to stop you buying anything. You can buy up existing properties if you really want to. Um, our argument in Eastleigh is we don't want to do that because that doesn't increase the amount of housing stock in totality. But it's a matter of different choices. Different places have different needs. We have a massive need to get more homes built and to house more people in need of housing. And that means building what we know is needed, not what developers want to build. If we simply handed the one Horton Heath site over to one of the volume builders, they build lots of four-bedroom houses, and they would use them to house people who've been moved in from places like Winchester or even Bracknell Forest, for that matter, as opposed to people in the local community. And that's not what we want. We want to build typically smaller units, a mixture of 2 and 3 bedroom houses and apartments with a good mix of stock that's of different types of rented tenure alongside the market sale stuff, because that we know is meeting the local need in Eastleigh Borough.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you. I will go on mute. Apparently, it's me that's causing the problem. Thank you, Tricia. Um, Dorothy, you had a question, but you put your hand down. Have you still got it?
Yes, it was he'd answered it, Keith, you'd answered it, who
Okay.
came up with Homes England, because Bracknell Forest, you say 93 you came on, I came on at 93 as well, so we're old people together, okay?
There we are. We'll get our Zimmer frames out before Christmas.
Okay. But my concern is, when we say going with Homes England, we did try once. There was a site, but they felt it was unsuitable because, let's put it this way, it's a tip,
Okay.
bad land underneath, which I didn't want to build there anyhow. That was a definite no for it. But my other concern is, when you say about going in, like with Avery Homes, we've got over 7,000 houses with them.
Okay.
And they've just come on board now, and they are really causing something Tricia will verify is the parking problems with a lot of the designs and buildings. We do have problems with the parking, and I'm looking at your pictures. You, I presume, passed the planning application.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Now,
that's an important part of this, Dorothy, in that
yeah.
we as the planning authority, we are also the applicant. We're also designing these schemes. And we've got clearly we've got high quality design codes attached to this stuff as well, because we want to make sure that what we build is of high quality. So we have that confidence ourselves to get it that far along the process. We don't even think about the money until we got the planning approved.
Yeah, it's
Because
the green belt.
we can't go to Homes England for money, or we can't go to the government for money unless we've got a clear delivery plan.
Yeah.
But the money is the smallest problem in all this. Getting the planning approval and all the work that goes with getting planning approvals. I've got a lot more sympathy for developers now than I had 10 years ago, because I know how difficult it is with all the studies you have to do and all the hoops you have to go through to get approvals from Natural England and from where you are, your own highways authority, and on and on and on to get this stuff built.
The other problem that arises is the word education, schooling, and doctors' surgeries. It's okay us saying we're doing the planning permission. What worries me again is we have a site that would have 3,000 houses when I started built. The developer we got into bed with, excuse the expression, changed what was when we moved out of our section, they were doing theirs. They were supposed to supply us with a school. They actually sold the land on to, we have a Tesco's there now, a very big one. And it's very much loved, but it was something, again, it does worry me, the changing of the planning application after.
Yeah. So that's not the kind of education you were expecting to provide, really, was it, Tesco? To
No, Tesco's.
So the benefit of jobs, yes, of course, yeah, and there's some skilling issues there, but probably not what were you really intended. So, I mean, with our One Horton Heath scheme for 2,850 homes, we, as part of that planning approval, the outline planning approval included a 3-form entry primary school. And we are building that. And we'll remind you again, we're not an educational authority. We're in this acting as a developer, but in the public interest. So we are designing a primary school that will open a bit earlier than would normally happen. But we're designing it so that it's complete on day one, which a developer wouldn't normally do. The developer would normally build 2-form entry and then extend it to the 3rd form entry a few years down the track. We don't want to have a building site for children to be at school in. So we are building that primary school ourselves. It will open in 2028. And again, that commitment was ours. Again, on health, again, because we're the planning authority, we were able to work with the NHS to ensure that a neighbouring GP surgery will have an extension on land that we own. We will probably end up being the builder for that extension as well, to make sure the health needs were met. So we were able to give that assurance to the community on day one before we started development on the site. We've built doctor surgeries as well for the NHS. The NHS property often like us more than they like their own organisation to get on with things, because we're a reliable developer and we can build things at good value with good design standards. So it can be done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Do you want to? We've got some questions for you, Keith, just to help the discussion. Do you want to bring them up, Harry, and on the screen, and then we'll go through it. And I see Christoph has arrived. Thank you.
Cool.
It just gives a bit of a backdrop. Okay. Just looking at the questions here. Just the first one, Keith. How do you go through the process to get the right construct for each of the schemes?
So the key is that every site is different, and we look at the real need that we're trying to fill on a particular site. Firstly, can the market do it by itself? Because if the market can do it by itself, we don't want to get involved. Our job is not to replace Barrett's and Taylor Wimpey and all the others. So if the market can do it, we'll leave it alone. Sometimes the issue is the market is almost there, but it can't quite make it work. One of the sites I showed you earlier was a site that a developer had for 1,100 homes. Government changed housing finance policy, and the RSL at the time wasn't ABRI, it was a different one. Couldn't then make the numbers work, but we were able to intervene by pre-purchasing about 100 units on the site, and also in a somewhat unusual arrangement, we lent the money to the developer to fund the school that the county council wanted, with a rate of return for us, of course. We wanted to make money out of it. But doing those two things together made it work. So different joint ventures with different objectives behind them to help the market work by itself. If the market can't work by itself, we'll either do a simple joint venture. We did one for 150 units in the east of the borough, which made us about £8 million in profit at the end of the process. But we were prepared to take the financial risk up front in return for the developer taking the development risk. And that was what worked for that site. All else fails, we will simply buy land and do it all ourselves. And that's the case with the one Horton Heath site, the big site, plus also about 5 or 6 sites we've got on the go at the moment. We also lend money to small volume builders to keep them in the market. Often they have problems attracting development finance. If they've got a track record, we trust them, we can work with them, they've got a business case, we're prepared to lend them money for schemes of 5 to 10 units. So it's about, what works for a site.
Brilliant, thank you. And the actual mix, I think you said earlier on it was a third, a third, a third. Is that broadly consistent across all the schemes?
Yeah, it's become close to that. It's not the same for every site. I mean, some of our town centre sites we've done as 100% affordable, fully grant funded, or fully grant funded plus the long-term income from the site. Because in those cases, we've recognised that in the town centres, we've got an absolute chronic need for affordable housing, and there's less of a need or demand for market housing. Likewise, one of the early sites we did was a mixture of market rent and social rent. Again, for similar sort of reasons, the area didn't need market sale properties. In the round, generally speaking, about a third, a third, a third seems to be a good mix to both get a good housing mix, to get a good community mix, to meet housing need, and tick all the right financial boxes. You also, by dealing with the absorption issue, which you normally get with volume builders, you can speed up delivery. It's also quicker to build if you're building them all in one go, rather than dribbling them into the market or 1 or 2 a week over the course of 2 or 3 years. If you're only selling a third of them, the absorption rate can be 6 times faster.
That's a really good point. When we spoke to you earlier on, and again you reiterated the comment today, it's about recognising the construct of a council, but convincing the CEO in the section 151. It's a long time ago since I guess you made that initial foray into building houses. Were they on side to begin with, or and I'm guessing that over time these individuals coming into Eastleigh know what to expect now. But that initial conversation, I'm curious how you approached it.
Well, we've always been a council that's done things differently for as long as I can recall. Back during the financial crash in 2008, we were approached by our local cricket ground. And if any of you are cricket fans, you'll probably know the Utilita Bowl, which used to be called the GS Bowl, and before that it was called the Rose Bowl. That was a venue which was in financial difficulty during the financial crash because the owners, Hampshire Cricket Club, were in debt to the Co-op Bank and Irish banks, and the Irish banks were not in a good place at that time, and so they were in risk of going under. So they came to us with a business plan. Would we be interested in building a big hotel on their site, a 4.5-star Hilton hotel, and along with a whole raft of other improvements? And we said, well, we know your business plans, we're prepared to do it. That was a commercial decision that we took back in 2008-9. So again, most councils wouldn't do that, but that was about protecting the venue, creating 500 jobs, and creating long-term income both for the council and for the club. It's made us a lot of money over the years, so it's a good investment. But it was for regeneration purposes, and it was doing that gave us the confidence, along with all the normal property things that most councils do. Most councils own industrial estates and office blocks and have done for years. Well, why couldn't we do the same thing in housing? And so we thought we would see if we could make it work. So there wasn't really a question of convincing the chief executive of the Section 151 officer. We were all part of the same journey. And I think that collaboration between senior staff and senior councillors is something that is really, really important. And if you can make it work, you'll be much better council overall, not just on this, but on everything else as you go along. So it's totally collaborative. We're in this together because the vision is a shared vision to improve the quality of life for Eastleigh residents. That sounds very pious, I know, but it sounds fingers down throat stuff. But it's true. It's an important
Proof
part
of
of
the pudding is in the
it's
building.
part of the DNA of what we try to do.
We talked about earlier on the infrastructure first approach in terms of the
Yeah,
way that you fund that and
yeah,
make that happen, recognizing schools, GP surgeries, and your mile road complete with
yeah,
bridges is
yeah,
going to cost an awful lot of money.
yeah.
Getting a scheme right to be able to do that, what's the secret?
I think learning carefully as you go along. I mean, I wouldn't suggest any council that hasn't got a record of building things and developing things to launch themselves an enormous project on day one. You want to work with partners to start with to build up your skill base. Once you've worked with partners on some schemes and then start doing smaller ones yourselves, then you've got the confidence to grow if you choose to. And not every council will do that, but often quite a lot do. So that's the key to that journey. Recruiting the right staff along the way. We've now got a much bigger, better team of valuers, of quantity surveyors, of people who understand the technical aspects of building homes, right the way through to how do you create a site for 400 homes based on a ground source heat pump loop, or build a primary school or whatever. You may have the primary school skills in house already as a unitary authority, but we had none of this stuff. We've now got that. We've built it on the back of our base as a holder of commercial property that we developed about 10 years before all this stuff started going, which gave us the confidence to work in the work with the private sector. So along the way, we've done all sorts of things. We effectively bought a rental estate agency business from someone who was working in our town centre, who was great at their job, but actually didn't want the responsibility of running a business. We needed a rental agency as part of our Eastbrook Homes package, so we simply recruited him and recruited his brand originally. So again, bespoke solutions.
Thank you. Jodie mentioned this earlier on. In terms of the debt that's on your balance sheet,
Yeah,
you know, it's good to be compared to us.
yeah.
What are you holding? What have you got?
It's probably about 500 million at the moment. Which is a figure which would make you fall off your chair, I guess. And that figure will go up, not down. But the figure's not actually terribly relevant in the wider scheme of things because everything is based on an absolutely robust business case. We've also got commercial borrowings for commercial property. And we were an outlier as far as the government were concerned when the government was looking at councils that were borrowing and getting into difficulties. I know you're geographically not that far away from Woking and Spelthorne and places, Runnymede, so they looked at us intensely, and we ticked all the boxes. And they went away and said, "Thank you very much, Eastleigh, you're doing a great job. We're not interested in you anymore." But the real key, is to understand the financing and get it right. So we have a property reserve, we have an investment reserve, we have so many reserves on the back of different things. A bad debt reserve for our private tenancies, and on and on and on. We haven't needed those. We have for the commercial property, but not for our housing. But if the business plan is robust, there is absolutely no reason why you can't do this stuff. The key is you should never, ever, ever expose your revenue account. Because if you do that, you're in difficulty. And that's what some of the councils elsewhere in the country have got into difficulties by doing. We have got a robust business case for what we're doing that is fundable from income from housing over the short, medium, and long term. And that's exactly what our forefathers did, isn't it? You know, all that council housing that was built in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, it was built on the basis of government funding. It was either borrowing or grant, which was repaid over time. Exactly the same as many of us in this virtual room will have done when we bought our homes through with a building society or a bank behind it. We recognise that we can pay it back over 25 years. At the end of that 25 years, we both paid off the debt and we got an asset. We're now starting to realise some of those commercial assets that are now debt-free because we bought them a long time ago.
Fabulous. Right, before we move off planning and preparation, anyone on the team want to ask a question to Keith in this particular area? We can come back later on if there's anything that crops up. Okay, let's go to the next one. So, brilliant. When you spoke earlier on, Keith, you mentioned that a developer would probably build lots of 4-bed McMansions.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you're very much more targeted on those 2, 3 apartments. How do you get to that critical understanding of what your market needs, and also to the standard that you're going to build it?
So there's two different key aspects there. One, the first is housing need. What's the need in the geographical area? And the second is what is the site capable of sustaining? So, for example, a town centre site almost certainly will want to build up because it's about achieving density. By achieving density, we'll almost certainly want to be building just apartments, not housing. On a greenfield site, we'll want to build a mixture. But in the rounds, almost everywhere, there is a need for all housing of all tenures. So it's a question really of what works best on the site, and then what will create a business case on that site.
That makes sense. Brilliant. So you mentioned earlier on that the sort of the impact around environment. So there's the environment net gain legislation, the sustainability standards. How do you bring that all together beyond what is statutory in order to give that environmental performance that we all desire?
Yeah, with great difficulty is the honest answer. This is one of the hardest bits to get right because you've got a whole stack of agencies, national agencies and beyond, who are interested in a lot of these areas that need to be accommodated. Our broad objective is we want to be very green in what we do in terms of energy. So we took a very early decision to not have gas on our sites, and that's now standard everywhere. Which means we've got to find solutions based on ground source heat pumps or on air source heat pumps, on potential links to solar. We bought a solar farm as part of one of our projects at One Horton Heath, partly because we needed to move some of the panels to make the road fit in the best location. But that also generates long-term green energy for us as an authority. Things such as space standards. Everything is above the national minimum space standards because that's the right thing to do. The quality of build, again, we use quality materials. We don't just use the bespoke materials. That's led us to, again, the kind of perverse position where we build roads that we are not prepared to get adopted by the highway authority because we build them to a higher standard and they won't adopt them. We're not the highway authority, you are, so it wouldn't apply to you, and we will be when we become unitary. So a lot of these things have been really challenging, and you get into some curious, difficult situations. I mean, with bats and newts and things. We've built bat hotels. The One Horton Heath site's got 2 bat hotels on it that had to be dealt with on day one or before day one. We've created lands, designated areas for newts, for all sorts of other critters along the way. Those are massive environmental gains, which have other benefits. We have also therefore bought other land in the borough for nutrient credits, for nitrates and phosphates, and for biodiversity net gain. Really difficult stuff, and you've got to get experts on board to do this stuff right. And again, it affects viability. So understanding the stuff early on is quite important.
Makes sense. So we have a JV with the Cambion Partnership, and we have a number of other developments across the borough. Quite often there's this issue of non-viability of social and affordable housing that comes up. Yeah. I'm guessing that you must have seen that problem yourself from developers. How do you deal with it?
Well, almost any developer can demonstrate that their scheme isn't viable. The question is, what do you mean by viability? If you mean, is it possible to build it and make a return? That's a different question from the one the government asks in terms of planning viability, which is classically, can you make a rate of return of 20 to 22%? And that's what a developer will use to demonstrate non-viability. So if we're the developer, doesn't really apply to us directly. Because we don't need to make a rate of return. We do. We choose to make a small rate of return just because we're interested in ploughing the money back into the borough as a whole. But we're not in the same position as a commercial developer would be. However, we do also want to attract grant from Homes England. So we have to play the development game as it runs in this country by being the nasty developer, demonstrating that a scheme is not viable, and then using that lack of viability in commercial terms to get grant from Homes England. It's the way the system works. It's a crazy system, but that's how it fits. So if you've got existing projects, the chances are some of those are just not viable in planning policy terms as opposed to genuinely commercial terms. If you're a co-investor as part of a JV, you ought to be able to fix that.
Makes sense. Thank you. And one of the key factors in being successful is the brand. So what was the brand?
Eastbrook. Yeah.
Eastbrook.
Google it later.
Yeah,
You'll get all these slides later from Harry. I'll ping them to Harry after this session. I didn't want to give them to you. I didn't want to give them to you in advance because you wouldn't have had the shock factor at the scale of this stuff.
No, it's great. So in order to ensure the Eastbrook brand and the quality is there compared to other the more volume builders, the Persimmons, the Wimpys, etc., how do you sort of get that quality that to maintain that brand and that people want to buy those houses?
Good QSs during the project, good project managers who are monitoring it on site on a daily basis. Alongside the fact that we've got design codes attached to our buildings, the fact that we are going for higher environmental spec, higher space standards than the market would generally go for, that gives us the ability to be a premium brand without being a premium price. It therefore improves the quality of the market as a whole over time. And we're just beginning to see that beginning to have an effect. It's a slow, long burn. So quality staff, everything that we sell goes through the same NHBC process that any other builder would do so for long-term benefit, but also the customer care angle. We recognise that if we sell a home through Eastbrook Homes and something goes wrong, it's going to hit the local press because it's the council that didn't get it right, not a dodgy builder in local parlance. So we've actually got to get the customer care bit of this journey right alongside it as well, which we recognise is actually quite a big problem with some of the volume developers. Sometimes, not everywhere all the time, but sometimes, some of the time. Customer care is really important, and that's true from the minute they walk through the door of the sales home or click on a website to start seeing your product to the point where they've moved in. And they're seeing, does everything work as it was meant to? We took a decision on one site just early this week that we were going to delay the release of a block of housing because we didn't want the new occupiers of that housing have to go through part of a building site to get to their homes on day one. A volume builder wouldn't have done that, but our brand reputation matters enough to us to say, hang on a minute, we'll pause that by a couple of months.
Fabulous. Any questions on build before we move on to the final one? Christoph, would you take over just running the session while I go and get Ted? I'll be on the mobile.
Yes, of course. No, apologies first for joining late, and Keith, thank you very much for your for being here. So coming in cold, I missed your presentation. Really sorry, but I think we're good with the questions. And boon of my life, 3-letter acronyms, RSL. What's that?
Registered Social Landlord. So housing association in plain English.
Thank you. So how successful have you been in providing these functions?
I think the evidence is that when I as a councillor, I've not had complaints from any Eastleigh Council tenants about anything we've done, and there are quite a lot in my ward.
Have they complained elsewhere? Newspaper?
No.
Media?
No. I mean, this is the customer care point I was making just now. You've got to get this stuff right. You've got to offer tenants as good or a better a service than you give to someone who reports a missed bin collection or a pothole or whatever, because it's a human thing. And the housing service is a frontline service where quality really, really matters. So I've not got any statistical information that I can give you on this or the next question as well, but I can give you the anecdotal response, and also from staff who I was speaking about this earlier this week by sheer chance, who said that we've got a good relationship with our tenants. That will become harder as the number grows. At the moment, the numbers are still relatively small, but that's the advantage of an old style housing association. One of the problems I think with the larger housing associations now is that their management is, by virtue of their size, a bit further away from tenants. One of the reasons we got into this stuff was because we wanted to be a local landlord, not a distant landlord.
Okay. No, thank you, Keith. So I think we can skip the next question. So from your experience, your tenants actually think that you are doing a good job, and you have not found any evidence to the otherwise, which is fine, obviously. How do you manage the revenue account for housing?
Yes, well, we don't, because we haven't got one. And this is something which we expected to have. And we expected the housing revenue account to be up and running now. But the government at the start of this year announced this thing called local government reorganisation. That meant we'll merge with our neighbours in 2 years' time. Our neighbours, Southampton, already have a housing revenue account, and we saw no point for a short period in establishing an HRA and running it separately, and then trying to merge it into Southampton's system. So all our stock is managed currently through our general fund, and it's effectively the same as an HRA in terms of the management processes, but outside the HRA legislation. So we had already gone through, over the last 2 years, a very painful process establishing all the things you need to do to re-establish an HRA. And it was painful and difficult and a very intensive piece of work, but worth doing, because a lot of that actually related back to the issues we've just been talking about in terms of providing a good service to tenants on repairs and lettings and everything else, money management, everything that goes alongside all that stuff. So, in time, if we had been a continuing organisation that was going to survive beyond April 2028, yes, the HRA will be up and running by now. But in the meantime, we'll just keep going using our general fund.
Yeah. Obvious questions. And how do you manage the long-term borrowing?
Yeah, simply through having a proper business case behind everything we're doing, and making sure that we're paying on time in the right way. It's those relationships are mainly with the government in one form or another. We haven't gone to the private market, but we are involved in joint ventures with the private sector, so we've got financial relationships there too. It's all about having a business case, so there's never any issue about repayments.
Yeah. Okay. Right. How successful is your market rates business?
Stunningly successful. I think, if anything, when we first launched our market rented stock, I think we underpriced it, because they just flew out the door at a very, very rapid rate of knots. And that's economics says that if that's the case, you're selling your chips too cheap. So the market rented stock has been very successful. The turnover of stock has been lower than we expected. The repairs costs have been less than expected. The bad debt issues have been less than expected. And I think that underlines the financial point I was making earlier, which we've been very, very careful to be very prudential in terms of the way we approach all this stuff, by being very, very careful. So financially, the market rental business is very, very profitable, provides a great rate of return, and it has helped us cross-subsidize the rest of our housing activity.
Okay. Are you actually exposed to right to buy with the way you're set up?
Effectively not. No, the cost of building is sufficiently high on new property with the current government legislation that right to buy is a minimal issue. Not least the fact that, as far as our market rental stock's concerned, we're even offering a right to buy, even though we've got no requirement to do so. But that's outside of the right to buy legislation.
Right. And what's the ownership model you're offering to the buyers? Is that shared ownership or?
Yeah, so we do every which way really. So the market sale stuff is simply the same as everyone else. We're simply selling the property.
Yeah.
Shared ownership again, we'll do under the same arrangements as a housing association would. Our market rental stock is on with the option of a lifetime tenancy, with the ability to buy from us from some years into the project. We do a variation there, which means that we're prepared to give a slightly discounted rent if the tenants will take on some of the responsibilities the homeowner would take. So, for example, responsibility of repairing your front door if the front door gets broken or broken into. We'll give you a discounted rent if you'll take those responsibilities, and we see that as useful socially because it's about giving some tenants, and this is all optional. There's nothing, no one's forced to do anything. This is about giving people the experience of some of the responsibility of home ownership before becoming a homeowner, so they realise what they might be getting into down the line if they choose to buy from us or from anyone else. We think that's a unique product invented in Eastleigh, but
that's quite interesting.
No one's proved it else other than that to me.
Yeah, I think one question. I think this is maybe forefront of our minds, quite frankly. What do you think we should do as first steps? Should we follow the same process?
So I touched on this a little bit earlier, Christopher, which I think
sorry.
I will always no problem at all. It's worth repetition. It really is. I would never ever suggest anyone directly copies any other local authority. Because you've got your own set of needs and circumstances that are different from anyone else's. That's the beauty of local government. I think my first step would be understand your housing market, maybe closer than you do now, by talking to agents, talking to landowners, talking to letting agencies about their rate of rental income. So understand your market. Go on to make sure from developers in your area what their plans actually are, what's stopping them doing things, and try and identify where the gaps are. What are the blocks? What are the barriers? What's stopping the right housing coming forward in the right place? And then seeing if you can fill some of those gaps. And that might not involve actually building anything. It might actually be about helping other people build things. But there's no reason why, having done all that, you can't do the next stage, which is probably a joint venture with a friend, either a friendly neighbour, or it could be with ABRI or with another housing association. Do one or two joint ventures, understand how the system works, build your skills capacity internally within the organisation. And if you're confident with all that and it feels like it's the right thing for you, then step into development directly. But I wouldn't step into development right now because you haven't got the experience to do it.
Yeah. No, that's pretty clear. Okay. Thank you, Keith. I think that was a lot of content.
One more
quite frankly.
slide. One more.
Yeah, we are really happy that we're recording that collectively, I believe. So one more slide, one set of questions, then you're off the hook, I guess. Right.
I think that's the slide we just had.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Help us out, Harry.
You're right. Yeah, sorry. You were right. I was wrong. That's
No.
same
Cool.
slide.
So
repetition's always a good thing, Christoph.
Yeah, I know. makes you remember stuff. Basically, that's how I picked up my Latin.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, well, I just have a very. My mum was very strict with me and made me learn my vocabulary, and this is how it goes, isn't it? Anyway, so I think we are at any other questions from the audience. So if you would like to raise your hand, if you have another question to Keith.
Stunned, shocked silence.
I think we are collectively a bit shell-shocked. I think. Oh, here we go. Okay. Dorothy, good evening.
Yes, Keith, one of my main bones of contention is the green belt. I know that we'll have problems with surrounding councillors and council if there was a site. I actually could think of a site now with a business on it that want to do a deal or something. But I know one of the things that will come up is the word green belt. And how did you get around it?
Well, we don't have any green belt.
This is
So
our
that's
problem
that's
down
what
here.
that's but that would be far too glib an answer. We have something which is kind of similar to Greenbelt without having the formal designation, which is our strategic gaps between our settlements, which act in much the same way as Greenbelt.
Yeah.
And we've taken a view that our first objective is to try to intensify development on existing urban land, so brownfield sites. If where we need to go beyond that, modest urban extensions that are appropriate to good planning, and then only going into wider greenfield sites in gaps between communities where there's no option. But I mean, I imagine you've got the same position that we have. We're a growth area. Our population has risen dramatically over the 30 years I've been leader. It's probably 50% bigger than it was at that point. And we now have to build on greenfield sites that we wouldn't have been prepared to release 20 years ago. Just because the local plan requirements are so high, we've got no option. That's why it's so important with our communities that we demonstrate we're going to achieve infrastructure first. Because our experience is that as long as you've still got gaps between communities, those gaps can be narrowed if people can be reassured on those wicked issues of how am I going to get little Johnny to school without congestion? Is there going to be a school for Johnny? And also, is there going to be a doctor's surgery nearby when Johnny gets sick? And if you can answer those questions with yes, 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 then actually a lot of the NIMBYism that opposes development, it doesn't disappear, but it becomes muted. And I think one of the challenges for local authorities and for councillors, and this is stepping into the difficult word of politics, one of the challenges for councillors is actually being prepared to speak up for those people who don't have a voice. And those people are typically the people who aren't being housed or haven't got the right housing solutions. I always say the example is that my generation, I was born in the mid-1960s, were able to buy their first homes on average salaries when they were in their early 20s. And I'm sure some people on this call today were in that position. That isn't the case for our grandchildren, and it's not the case for many of our children. And that's because the housing market is broken, and it's mainly because we haven't built enough homes in the right places. So we as councillors have got to have the confidence to say, we're going to be YIMBYs, not NIMBYs, because the housing need is greater than the reason not to do it. And I think the evidence I've got from my own community is that actually more people understand that than you would expect, because it's the loudest voices you typically hear on planning approvals, planning applications. It's not actually the silent majority.
And people have children, and I think people have grandchildren, and they see what's happening. And I agree with you, and I think all of us on the call have the same experience. It's simply housing is really bloody expensive, isn't it? It's quite difficult to get on the ladder. I needed a big push from my parents to get there, quite frankly.
And the first slide that Harry popped up showed that the house prices in Bracknell Forest are the one thing that was significantly different. When you looked at what Eastleigh is and what Bracknell Forest is, the thing that really stood out was the gap in house prices. There we go. Thank you for the context again, Harry. And that difference of 100,000 says that you're not building enough homes to meet housing need. I don't mean you as individuals. I mean that the system isn't delivering enough homes. But what it also says, actually, is that housing viability is probably higher in Bracknell Forest than it is in Eastleigh. So it should actually be easier to do some of this stuff. Okay. You may not think that right now.
No, I get you, because fundamentally the cost. I mean, we have the land cost. That's one thing which is slightly different. Building a house on the same land is the regional differences are comparatively minor as long as we are here in the southeast, aren't they? So that's your point. Basically, we can sell the same product for more money and make a better business case out of that. Yeah. I have another question for you, which is around architecture. Do you employ local architects?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We're quite lucky geographically. Well, you are too, where you are in Berkshire. In that you're near lots of places that have got good local architecture practices. And we've used businesses in Winchester and all over the place. But
Yeah.
yeah, we try to use smaller firms where we can, because we want to develop a relationship with architects, and there are 2 or 3 that we keep coming back to. I mean, they win tenders competitively or competitions competitively, but we've got good working relationships. And the guy we're building a school with, Peter Marsh, I think he's somewhere near you actually, Peter Marsh Associates. Fantastic visionary character who's got all the right set of values. Getting values right with your partners is important as well, because you've got to work together over a long time.
Thank you for the answer. Do we have any other question for Keith? Okay, Mike, you're just listening at the moment. Anything from you?
No, nothing from me.
Good.
I think it's been a fabulous presentation, Keith. Really appreciate it.
Yep. I'm sorry I missed half
folks.
of it. I'm sorry I missed half of that, but I think on behalf of this group of our panel, thank you very much for dialing in. Dorothy, any observations, questions?
Yes, he's made me think of a piece of land where I think we can go to. Oh, yes, and with the business there as well.
I would just say good luck and be bold.
Oh,
Yeah.
I will be.
Yeah. I think Dorothy is not a shrinking violet. So just saying.
And I really have appreciated it. I really have. It maybe we're on different places, but the education of what we could be doing is, it's opened up the brain a bit more. What's left. But thank you, and no doubt we'll get the slides as well.
No worries. Yeah, I'll send to Harry later this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. So unless you have anything else from anyone, let me just again express my thanks on behalf of this committee and this panel. Keith, it was inspiring, quite frankly, and well, I think you could do also good money, not just with developing houses, but also with training councillors and councils how to develop houses in the first place. I think you've developed quite a very interesting skill set there. And as Dorothy said, it was really genuinely inspirational. Really, thank you.
Great. Well, do something, and that'll make it worthwhile. Thanks for your time, everybody.
No, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for listening in. And good night, and we talk soon. All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.